probably more comparable to the Holocaust than a war, right? Because
how can you acknowledge that and then pay for it? It's actually sickening. Sorry, again, not calling you a sickening person. I'm getting tempted, though.
the animals aren't doing all that good of a job of fighting back.
3 times a day when we look at our dinner plates and we see it there.
Excuse me?
Okay, I take it back. Xanderhal, you're evil. Fuck you.
Even today,
Donate to increase my penis size to counteract with his penis. Because, like, I just need to sword fight this guy. I really do. For context, for people who don't know, Xanderhal is another, like, left YouTuber. He's very, like, Destiny, Vosh, had a baby,
I haven't seen much of his content.
Oh, okay.
But, oh my god, this is 27 minutes long.
Oh my god. Yeah, well, we'll be quick with it. I don't think we need to, because if anyone's, like, interested fully in the positions, then they can see the other video that we did, you know. But it would be interesting to see Xanderhal's take. Because bearing in mind, if you don't know Xanderhal, he had a debate with Ask Yourself, it was. And he conceded to a perpetual holocaust of people on the moon. Ask Yourself ran name the trait on him. And he conceded to,
oh my God.
like, so that's kind of demonstrating that he has had these conversations with vegans before and gone through where his positions lead him.
In order to remove these two factors from humans, we're just going to say, so first of all, there's no social consequences. Let's say that it happens somewhere like on a moon colony and people aren't made aware of it. So no one's told it's happening. So no social consequences. And we're going to say that it's people who are disabled to a point that you can't point to any way in which a cow has lower cognitive performance than them. We're just talking about people who can solve basic puzzles. They don't really have much language. They seem to enjoy being around their loved ones. Someone who's fairly disabled.
Okay, so more or less like the brain of a cow in a human's body.
Not
almost.
quite. Just the brain of someone who has...
Or cognitively speaking.
Yeah, someone who's not displaying intelligence to any greater degree. Because you said it was specifically about intelligence. We didn't deal with anything else, like maybe their emotional capacity or something like this. So it's not literally a cow's brain, but yeah, equal with respect to intelligence.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think it would probably be fine.
So you would support a holocaust of disabled people on a moon colony?
I mean, yeah, if they were basic... Well, obviously, I don't support it for animals, but I mean, if it turned out their human meat was really good, had no health problems, and I was like, yeah, I want some of that human meat, then yeah, maybe.
Hypers in chat, if you're aware of a man by the name of Perspective Philosophy. Some of you seem to know, a lot of you don't. Perspective Philosophy is this guy right here. He's got a YouTube channel. How many subs does he have? An amount? Presumably.
Hello, everyone.
14.3k. So he's not a nobody. 14,000 subs is certainly not a nobody. You know, he gets some good viewership on his content. You know,
how many views.
he seems to mostly do.
We're nobodies.
Yeah, we're nobodies.
But combined,
or maybe
combined, we're not
it looks like. Vegans tend to do it a lot. Vegans are really big into the philosophy thing. And don't get me wrong, I agree with vegan ethics, but I'm not a very big fan of the way that many vegans act. And that's actually what we're talking about here today, because that's the source of all this drama. From November 25th, a couple...
It's the same old, same old. I agree with vegans, but I don't like the way they advocate. And I'm not vegan, so I don't actually agree with vegans, because if I did, I would be vegan. But I agree with vegans, and I think they're really good, and I want to give them, like, a pat on the back for what they're doing. But, like...
We don't want your back pats. We want you to stop paying for the exploitation, mutilation, and killing of other sentient beings. I don't care if you like, well, I agree. What do you eat? Who do you eat? Who do you wear?
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, I don't care. It's like, you know, when people are like, I really care about you so much. I really do. But let me do all these abusive behaviors and gaslight you and do all these things. It's like, you're saying I care about you no longer matters.
Natalie Wynn, our beautiful queen, ContraPoints tweeted, I find it impossible to believe that anyone actually likes tofu. What do you like about it? The lack of taste or the lack of texture? But it takes on the flavor of seasonings. You know what does that way better though? Meat. I get that veganism is good for animals and the environment, and that's really noble and honorable of you, but it is a barren life of deprivation and self-denial.
We should probably, do you want to reiterate the point that we said about the whole addiction thing and like how you understood that it was inflammatory, and do you want to say that again? Just because...
Yeah. I do understand why it was inflammatory. I probably wouldn't have worded it that way. But if you listen to Perspective Philosophy, like if you were to have a conversation with him, he does recognize that addiction shouldn't be stigmatized and that he himself has struggled with addiction. He can defend himself, himself. But what we want to talk about is the subject matter of Natalie's tweet. I think Natalie's tweet is more egregious.
And anyone who think otherwise, well, literally just weigh it up. Like, we're talking about up to trillions of animals killed every single year. By number alone, there are more victims. And I'm sure you'd think like physical exploitation, mutilation, killing, rights violations of an individual would be worse. And if you think, well, they're just animals, it's like, okay, well, what's the morally relevant difference between those animals and us that would justify that or make that different? I can't find it.
Yeah.
Catherine can't find it. Maybe you'll find it.
Also, can we just make a quick note about Natalie's third tweet here?
Yeah.
I just find it so ridiculous that on the one hand, they're saying that we're doing something that's really noble and honorable. And they're like praising us for being essentially saints who are living this barren life of self-deprivation. But then on the other hand, they're saying that we are self-righteous, we think we're better than everyone else, and we're not actually better than everyone else, and we're on our high horse and like all this bullshit. It's like, which is it?
I don't know.
Are we doing this noble thing that we should be praised for, or do our actions not make us better than other people? Like,
which one is it?
I feel no need to defend this take. This is clearly Natalie Wynn shitposting on Twitter about how she just wants to eat meat because meat tastes good. Like, that's clearly what this is. Like, the BIM.
Yeah, it clearly is. But when you're shitposting, you could think of other contexts where someone's shitposting, but in doing so, they're undermining the plight of an individual. So it's like, well, it's not really, it goes past shitposting, especially when that individual is oppressed to this day. Yeah. So no, it's not just that, is it? Oh, it's just shitposting. It's just a meme.
Bimbo, I'm not going to engage with the virgin philosophy discourse around a topic. I'm just going to go with like whatever the fuck I want to do because, bimbo moment. Like, that's literally the meme, like the joke I feel like is gone for here. But maybe it's flying over Perspective Philosophy's head. Maybe it's flying under my head.
Maybe it's flying over your head that there are victims of, this, like, that Natalie is undermining. And we would expect better from people like Natalie, who are part of this community that's supposed to be there for marginalized groups.
Head. Maybe I'm getting hit in the neck by the point here, and it's actually not a joke, and she's being completely serious and genuine here, and she genuinely thinks this is a good argument against veganism. But I find that unlikely. And Perspective Philosophy decided to quote tweet this, or I should say screenshot it.
I think we should skip this bit because obviously we've gone through that. I just want to hear his opinion on veganism. So I guess him reacting to the video would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Put it on 1.5 speed, so it'll zoom right by 11 minutes. It'll zoom right by, but I'm gonna give our boy here the best opportunity possible to defend his arguably quite controversial statements.
So counterpoints and many other people have you think that veganism is a virtue, a noble sacrifice done by some sort of monastic individual capable of absolute self-discipline. As if I'm sitting here in the hills of Tibet after a 24-hour meditation cycle. Of course not. Veganism is not about virtue, it's about vice. It's not about being a saint, it's about not being a sinner. So before I begin, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. I'm not downplaying anyone's struggles, I'm not undermining anyone's hardships. I understand that self-destructive behaviors can be absolutely unbelievably detrimental to an individual's life and freedom and happiness, and I've experienced the very same self-destructive behaviors in the past, whether it's in my relationship with addiction or in OCD, when I compulsively wash my hands until they've bled. I understand that self-restraint can be absolutely painful and difficult and even beyond a given individual's capacity at a single time to engage in. But the reality is that unless we recognize our own responsibility in relation to our actions, we will never be free.
I just wanted to highlight that he acknowledges that it's not always within people's control. Like, you do kind of lose agency when you're in the throes of addiction, and he just acknowledged that. But I just want to say, like, one of the issues I had with his comparison here is that it's much harder to quit like a hard drug. Like meat is not physically addictive. So I kind of get what he's saying, but at the same time, it's like, I think it's kind of making it sound like veganism is just as hard as like quitting heroin.
Not, like, the only thing that's
I don't think he actually believes that. I think that's what's kind of conveyed with this comparison.
The only thing that is somewhat like addictive would be like cheese because of the casomorphines, but it's not like morphine itself, it's not like quite that bad, but people do, and PP has discussed this. I don't think he thinks it's as difficult.
Yeah.
free from those compulsive or harmful behaviors that we engage in. And so any good therapist will tell.
Wait, does he think that eating meat is like a compulsive behavior? I mean, I guess it's a learned behavior that you kind of develop and become used to in your upbringing, depending on what your upbringing is. I mean, I used the upbringing example a minute ago, but I don't know if that's a compulsion, right? Like, a compulsion is different from a desire, right? Like, for example, if I bake a beautiful chocolate cake, we'll even make it a vegan chocolate cake, for example. I cook up a beautiful vegan chocolate cake, and you're on a diet, and you're like, I'm not going in on sweets right now. I'm trying to drop the calories. I'm on a diet right now, but I'm just, you see me, you're watching me as I'm making this beautiful vegan chocolate cake, right? And you're like, God, I want that so bad. That looks so good. Is that necessarily a vice or like a compulsion? I think it's just more of like a craving. Perspective philosophy is,
it's not so much in that it's food in itself can be a vice. Like,
yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I guess will walk back what I said earlier a little bit, because I don't want to downplay food addiction. Like, I understand that.
Oh yeah, like I've struggled
be addicted to food.
Yeah. I've struggled with it in the past. I didn't really acknowledge it, like, but yeah, I've had problems before, and I think, like, to a degree, a lot of people seek comfort or restrict. There's loads of different reasons, but
vegan food is like just as freaking satisfying. Yeah. So you can still have like satisfy those cravings as a vegan. You can still be a junk food vegan who eats a lot of.
The difference seems to be that, like, it's understanding that, like, veganism is a restriction upon a diet, just as not eating dogs is a restriction upon your diet. You know, it's seeing that, you know, that, oh, well, we don't eat dogs because it's morally wrong. It's not like the same thought process that someone will, you know, have when they're struggling with their, it's like the reasons for restricting it isn't because it's related to the disorder or the control. It's about victims, so it's like a completely different thing. But obviously, because there's a lack of understanding of what veganism is to begin with, a lot of people who have those issues, you know, it can be, you know, triggering or a problem for them. There are a lot of vegans with eating disorders who speak up about this, and a lot of the time it's been like, yeah, it is a restriction, just like dog eating, not doing that is a restriction, or not eating cats, that's a restriction. But that's a socialized restriction. It's not like you know, an ED restriction. So
yeah, that's a good one.
There we go.
Is in YouTube chat. He should come to the website chat. That's the good chat.
Tell you the road to recovery is through accepting the responsibility for your actions. And it's something that I've struggled to do in the past, and it's something that all of us struggle to do every day of our lives to varying degrees. So I recently tweeted ContraPoints, a position which I thought was less controversial than clearly it is, about how addicts could learn self-denial. And this was in response to her tweet, in which she said that a vegan life was barren and destitute. And of course, being a vegan and seeing the harm that could be done from a tweet like this.
Perspective philosophy, the only reason I'm making this segment is for that tweet and that tweet alone, really.
Oh, is he not going to touch upon veganism? Oh, well, he's going to have to if he watches
Why would you tweet that? The reason people are mad about that tweet isn't because they necessarily disagree with the idea that, like, veganism is good or that you should be a vegan or anything like that. I think they mostly took issue with you seemingly attacking.
But I think that the reason people really did, you know, reply to it was somewhat motivated by the fact that they don't like vegans. I do think that had a large part to play with why people got on top of it, because you know, there are people like Vosh who won't debate him again or won't share out the stream that he did, and I think Vosh called him a cuck boy not long ago. It was like, you know, have fun fading into irrelevancy. He said that about PP.
Remember how earlier perspective philosophy, that cuck boy who like ran over to GGG after like talking with me for 3 hours and pretending that I lost? Unfathomably stupid and unpragmatic. Have fun circle jerking into irrelevance.
But then suddenly he's there and talking about it. Like, it's just like, yeah, okay.
Her character for her drug addiction, which is something that's generally considered not good practice on the left. Here on the left, we're generally pretty, like, favorable to the victimization of drug dealers.
Yeah, he's good. But yes, so when we look at what PP actually believes, so is he. It just seemed like he worded it kind of weirdly. I don't know.
Right. That's what I was going to say is like, yes, the tweet itself and the nature of Twitter, like bringing that up is, like we said, inflammatory.
Yeah, I just
but
wouldn't.
when he goes on to clarify what he meant by it and like explains himself, why is Xanderhal not recognizing that he doesn't actually mean to stigmatize drug addicts? Like,
yeah, maybe like I mean, yeah, I mean he's already heard some of the clarification, and yeah, it's not seeming to. But let's see if he goes, oh look, I can see some animal bits here, so let's see if he actually addresses it.
And of course, being a vegan and seeing the harm that could be done from a tweet like this, and seeing her numerous tweets and numerous engagements with veganism, which have ultimately led to her engaging and continuing to engage in exploitative behaviors, obviously I was upset. But not for myself, but for animals. Billions of animals die every year. 46 million died for Thanksgiving alone. So it's no small issue. We are living in an age which is a mass genocide. And I think that as long as huge influencers...
She would pour cow milk on herself while doing it just to upset the vegans. Wait, hold on, wait. Can I tell you guys my first ever interaction I had with vegans on this stream? Like, when I started streaming politics, and I encountered my very first vegan, and they were a fan of me. Do you want to know what happened? The first vegan I ever encountered, very, very early on in my politics streaming stuff, they got me banned from Twitch. Because they donated a video to me about I believe it was the dairy industry, and it was a YouTube documentary, and I was logged in, so it didn't warn me that it was an age-restricted video, so it just kind of played the video like any normal video, and I had no reason to suspect. About 5 minutes into the video, it was going to show a dildo being inserted into a bull's asshole in order to help him ejaculate, so that they could collect the bull semen and then use it to impregnate a female cow, so that they can then proceed to have more cows. Which, yes, another horrible reality of our dairy and meat industry, but also not very fond of by Twitch. And they got me for that one. They got me real quick for that one. That was a 3-month-long ban I got.
Isn't it interesting that the actual process is so graphic and horrific that it gets you banned off a platform for showing it? But if someone sat there like me and drank a milkshake but actually had that in that, then like...
Right.
Yeah. So, but...
It's like he's acknowledging it, like Lance. He's acknowledging the horror, but then he isn't vegan.
No, I'm so sure Xanderhal is. Yeah, he's not, because otherwise he would have said like I'm pretty sure like he spoke about it. The spiteful people in the comments were like, oh yeah, she should have ate the bodies of another animal who's completely uninvolved with the vegans. The animals did nothing to you, but you want to piss off a vegan. Why would you involve an exploited being in your spite?
Our most unethical habits and behaviors continue to perpetuate norms and conventions which cause the suffering and death of billions of animals. I think that it should be called out.
Yeah. The bulls do. Yeah, the reason why they use a dildo in the bull's ass to help it nut is because yes, bulls do have a G-spot in their asshole. It's like they're fucking the prostate. You stimulate it with a dildo in the asshole and jack off the bull, and it works like a charm.
I know, it's like, what do we call that in the human context, Xanderhal? Like, what do we call that when a non-consenting participant, it has that happen to them? Like, interesting.
Yeah, but the problem here that he chose to highlight, the whole purpose
was
of
that he got banned.
is that, but also that perspective philosophy is stigmatizing drug addicts, and that's so much more egregious than what he got literally banned for on Twitch.
And that's only one aspect of animal agriculture, and that one alone is just so horrible and involves so many victims.
It seemed that an inability to restrict oneself was causing both the self-destruction of this individual and the harm of the other. It has the same solution. It's the same ethical issue, just on two separate sides of the same coin. We can see exploitation and addiction as part of a self-perpetuating...
I'm sorry, dude, but this is the creepiest shit I've ever seen. Like,
you just talked about animals being sexually violated for a product, and then you go, dude, this is the creepiest shit I've ever seen. Right, carry on.
Psychoanalyzing somebody's drug addiction and comparing it to their unwillingness to give up eating meat, animal products, is just such a massive stretch. Such an unbelievably large stretch.
Situation of hedonistic desire which leads to the exploitation of an individual. In the case of animals, in the case of meat eaters towards animals, it's of course the exploitation of another. In the case of addiction, it's the exploitation of the self by the self. Both have the same solution. self-restraint. And this is what this video is about. Self-restraint. Self-restraint is not, in fact, a bad thing. I've spoke about this in my response to Lena Norms and on countless occasions in relation to objective ethics. The reality is our consideration for ourselves and for
I want to
others
go further
spans
to
from the
see.
same
I think at
rational
the
engagement with our
end.
desires.
Oh wait, does he hardly?
Cocaine isn't physically addictive. The number one effect of being high on cocaine is wanting more cocaine ugly inside.
Hang on, I'm just wanna.
I care about Natalie, I genuinely do, and I hope she recovers and lives a long, happy life. One which she does not harm other people and use her preferences as an excuse to do so. I want this to be clear that the same reason I care
How
about Natalie is the same
terrible of him to say
Harm other people?
that.
Yeah.
Wait, are we? Are animals people now? Is Natalie out there harming
yes,
us?
they
Yeah,
are.
they-
yes.
they deserve
yes,
personhood,
They deserve
actually.
personhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other people? Like, you can make the argument that Natalie is harming
I think what PP was saying there was other animals, Xanderhal, but like it might have been a
Yeah.
slip.
animals by continuing to consume animal products.
Yep.
But you can't. I don't think Natalie's out there harming people. You know, I don't think like. I don't
Or
think
he
she's
said
out
it
there like getting
intentionally
like
in-
a new
Including animals
Yeah.
in people.
bag question mark of opium and like pulling out a shiv and like shivving the drug dealer. Like, I don't think she's out there hurting anybody. I think
Okay,
she's doing all right.
I'm so over this.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
we'll take this dude's
I just want to
discussion
see
like
because
he's
he
not
talks
one of
about
the
animals more
vegetarians.
at the end, but
It's a virtue to be a kind, compassionate
Oh, here we go.
person. It's not a virtue to not beat people up.
there we go.
That is a baseline. Same thing with veganism. 46 million animals.
What do you mean? Are you about to disagree?
No,
Oh.
no, that's not how philosophy works. I don't think.
Wait, what? Yes, it is.
Yes, it literally is. Like, if we to analogize it to an industry that exploits, say, human beings, all right? And you have a choice of an option where there's that same sort of industry, it gives your same need, but, okay, well, like, this one doesn't entail, like, the direct rights violations of those individuals. And you like participate in it knowingly, you know what happened, and then the person like next to them is like, well, I'm not going to participate that now, I'll participate in the other one. They're not being virtuous, they're just not engaging in a horrifically
Right.
destructive behavior. So like it's not on the vegan who's being good, it's on the non-vegan to not do something bad. That's
Yeah, and it's the difference between it's virtuous to give a homeless person some cash, but it's an obligation to not go up to them and assault them.
Yeah, precisely. And
Like-
this would be like, so Xanderhal, do you think that people should get pats on the backs for not abusing people? Like, well done for just like, you could have been like so abusive really if you wanted to, but like you weren't, and well done. Like, I just so that's
Yeah. Do I get a gold star because I didn't like
Punch people?
assault
yeah, like,
someone
hell
today?
yeah.
Like,
well, I got like 3 people annoyed me on the way to the shop and I didn't punch them. That's like amazing. Like, thank you so much. Ugh.
I don't agree with that necessarily. Like, philosophy is socially constructed. We agree on that, right? Like, the concept of philosophy is a social construct. We came up with that. We kind of invented it. At least that's my
God.
I
understanding.
don't know how, even if this is the case, I don't know how, like, you would be wildly inconsistent, I believe, if you were to take this position otherwise, because I don't think you would apply it to the other context whatsoever. I really don't. Do you think that it's, like, virtuous of people to not be homophobic? Xanderhal, do you think I should pat people on the back for not hating me? Like, should I? Is that virtuous? To be like not a homophobe? No, it's not at all.
it's baseline. Baseline
Oh,
expectation.
You're not
Yeah.
sexist. Oh my god, thank you so much for not being sexist. Like, what do you want, a cookie? I don't think you think that any other. No.
I would call somebody back, like, I would call, like, a white dude who lives in the South during slavery times and is, like, openly anti-slavery. I would call that guy a virtuous person.
Wow, he's really
Because the location,
he's really gonna go there.
the time period, and the culture this person has been brought up in is one that naturally would have someone come to the conclusion that slavery is totally fine, totally.
Yeah, but we can
Is
understand.
he trying to argue that it's not an obligation to be against slavery?
And the thing is, right, we can understand. I know that we're outside of the social norm, but slavery's happening now more than ever because of the population increase. Okay, so it's still happening, and we still take it to be wrong. And I think no matter what, even if it's socially acceptable, it's not suddenly right. Just because the majority of society, if tomorrow 90% of society would like, oh, slavery's right, we should enslave people, it wouldn't suddenly make it right then or 100 years from then, like doing the same behavior. Like, so, but if he's really he bites the bullets on some really like wacky things, so not
really cool, right? And yet, despite that, they have a uncharacteristically radically progressive opinion for that time period in that area that they push, right? I argue that makes them a more virtuous person than if nowadays you had somebody on the...
I'd say it's more progressive, but I wouldn't say it suddenly makes them virtuous as an individual. Like, I just...
If we're talking about moral character, like, I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, it's like better moral character, yeah.
We're talking about the action here.
Yeah, not the
like,
person. Like, this is what constantly, like, people like Vosh and Xanderhal do. They conflate bad person and bad action, like, all the time. Yeah, I'm seeing the confusion here now, but now that you said that.
Street bellowing out their condemnation of slavery. It's like, well, I mean, you're not very brave for bellowing out condemnation of slavery now in 2021 in the streets of Palm Springs, California, but maybe if you were standing on the side of, like, a slave auction in the 1700s, 1800s, 1700s... Well, no, 1800s, yeah. It was like 1800s, during slavery times in Mississippi or something, bellowing out your disdain for slavery. Then I would argue you're a virtuous person, because not only are you putting yourself in danger by having those politics, but also your politics stand out from that of the time, area.
Yeah, you might be a virtuous that's where the confusion is. I'd say they're a virtuous person. It's not a virtuous thing. Like, that's the issue. But they're more concerned with the person.
Yeah, this is so weird that he's saying all of this, because that's what vegans say. What kind of person do you think you are? What kind of person do you think you would be if you were in that situation?
Yeah, I literally
wouldn't
said
you
it
like
about
to think of yourself
in the last one, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, like, wouldn't you like to think of yourself as the type of person who would have been an abolitionist back then? Or are you okay with the fact that you would have been a normie who condoned slavery? Because that's what you are in this context.
And again, I find it so weird because they know that they are that person who's doing that, because they'll use that analogy and they'll grant that it's like these horrible atrocities that will look back in the future and think, oh my God, how is that? But you were willing to still participate in it, even knowing that. It's just wild.
Yeah, what the hell?
It's just like, that's when I start thinking that it's just a bit evil. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the indifference there that's present. It's just like, how can you expect, like, I don't think Xanderhal believes there's going to be like a revolution, on the left. I don't believe so. But
again, we don't. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, but I just don't know how people expect, and PP has said this as well, I don't know how people on the left expect like a revolution or these massive changes, if they can't even change the filling in their sandwich. I just don't, like, I can't put my hand in another place in the supermarket. Like, please, I'm pretty sure Xanderhal has the means to do so. He's become quite a successful streamer. He's never, like, said anything about his, like, earnings, not that he needs to. But I'm pretty sure he probably has the means to do so. So, yeah. Sorry, what are you going to say?
Oh, because you were saying his action... his apathy is a bit evil. Like, that doesn't mean we're saying that you, Xanderhal,
are an
you have evil
to clarify
person.
With these people.
We're talking about your actions here.
Sorry, I forget that, like, people can't actually hear the words I say. Like, there's people in my chat who, if I'll say that's so bad, that's a horrible thing to do, they'll be like, oh, you're calling people evil again. It's like, sorry, where? Like, there's been very few times there are very few people who I genuinely believe are evil people, but there are a lot of things that I look at and think that is evil.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but sorry, I forget. You have to, God.
culture you've grown up in, which is, you know, sort of unusual and uncommon. Nowadays, that wouldn't really be considered all that virtuous of an argument, but when you're the one sort of helping to pave history, to pave the way forward for more progressive, like, accepting society, when others refuse to, yeah, in our socially constructed idea of philosophy and what makes someone a virtuous person, that person would by definition be virtuous. I mean, that's my view, at least.
Animals. All individuals feeling pain and pleasure, fear, suffering, crying out, usually in dark, cramped spaces, so that individuals can have a preference for their flesh. It's not something that can be mocked, laughed at, downplayed. It is the greatest moral travesty of our time. It is equivalent to a war, if not worse than most wars that are engaged in today. The outward, at least most of us recognize that war is wrong. Very few of us recognize the harm we do.
I mean, it's probably more comparable to the Holocaust than a war, right? Because
How can you acknowledge that and then pay for it? It's actually sickening. Sorry, again, I'm not calling you a sickening person. I'm getting tempted, though. Like, I really am getting tempted. Because you're like, well, actually, it's not really, you know, it's more comparable to, like, a Holocaust than a war. Yet here you are, like, probably paying into it. Yikes. Yikes.
the animals aren't doing all that good of a job of fighting back.
3 times a day when we look at our dinner plates and we see it there.
Excuse me?
Okay, I take it back. Xanderhal, you're evil. Fuck you.
Even today, when people sit down and give thanks for equality and diversity, it's built upon the slaughter and exploitation of over 46 million animals. The most...
Imagine saying that, right? Oh, you know, like, there were loads of, like, LGBTQ people who were killed in the Holocaust. Oh, the gays, yeah, we didn't do a very good job of fighting back.
Or, no, children. Because children, like babies,
Yeah,
children aren't able to fight back.
We should just remember as well
their
that
abusers.
the animals who are in those atrocities, often they are like infants or they are young like animals. So like loads of victims of the industry, like day-old baby birds are ground up in a macerator. Like there are so many victims. So like, oh yeah, not doing a really good job of fighting back. If they didn't want to be blended alive, they should have done a better job of fighting back. Asshole. Yeah.
That is the most ableist shit I think I've ever heard, actually.
I was just like, oh no, we need to make sure not an evil, but no, actually evil, Xanderhal. What a twat. Actual twat.
Oh, you're gonna be clipped. He's gonna make a whole video about how you called him a twat.
Actual twat. Ding dong.
Mere preferences of those who want to sit down at a dinner table and give thanks for the very virtue that they are disregarding when they consume these animals. I genuinely do not believe that you can endorse equality, diversity, and love, or benevolence even, for others, whilst continuing to justify their exploitation.
What the fuck are you umming at, you ding dong?
You don't have an argument against ContraPoints and what she stands for and her progressive policies and her advocacy and everything she stands for, so you call out imagined hypocrisy, which is you believe that it's bad for racism to be a thing, or transphobia to be a thing, or homophobia or sexism, etc. to be a thing, and yet you're still okay with eating animals. Gotcha, Lefty. You've blown the
imagined hypocrisy. Also,
yeah,
why would you call him out for the other things? He agrees
I would
with
get
her
it
on the
if
other
like
things.
Are you
like he agrees with ContraPoints on all these other things.
So it is a hypocrisy. You've just said it's like, he literally just said it's like a Holocaust. There is like...
How? This is why, okay, I'm a hypocrite right now because we're both sitting here streaming, reacting live to a stream, but like this is kind of why I have a problem with streamers. Is that when I make, not you, I mean, okay, so this is streaming. I'll say I have a problem with streaming, not streamers, because obviously I watch a lot of streamers and I appreciate streamers. But this is my issue with streaming, is that when I sit down to write a video script, like I'm really thinking about concepts and like editing what I'm saying and really making sure I'm saying it the right way and like I'm checking myself to make sure I'm not contradicting myself. And that doesn't happen when you're just doing a live react. So
Yeah,
it's like they say the most ridiculous things because they're not thinking about what they're saying.
Yeah.
But then how do they go in post-production and be like, oh, this is good to upload to YouTube?
To be fair, they have people edit for them, and they might be like not very like intelligent or looking properly, or just think, oh well, that's what they wanted clipped, so fair enough. But some of them, are looking in post-production, and it is really hard, I will say, because I do stream quite a lot. There are some times where I'm like, hang on, I wouldn't have said that, I don't think, if I would have thought that through more. And you are doing it in real time, you're just kind of like, it's a stream of thought, like literally.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Xanderhal, I really do believe that he would have said that regardless of whether or not he was streaming. Like, considering, like, the daft takes he has on veganism, considering how many videos I've seen where people have, like, highly edited their videos and they've still said absolute garbage. It's just like, nah, sorry, mate, that's just dog shit. Like, that is dog shit right there, and it would have been dog shit whether or not you'd, like, edited it more. Like, I think he really thinks that.
Yeah, like... You're basically doing the, how can you...
Can I just mention as well, like, he has a bit that says donate to increase penis size. If anyone wants to donate to increase my penis size, that would be, like, really good, okay? Donate to increase my penis size to counteract with his penis. Because, like, I just need to sword fight this guy. I really do. Like, just straight up.
Sit there and say racism, sexism, and fascism, and reactionary politics and whatnot are bad, because they hurt people, but then that makes you a hypocrite because you eat meat.
It does make you a
eating
hypocrite.
Meat obviously hurts animals. It's like, well, I don't think that makes you a hypocrite.
What? You just said that the industry was like comparable to a Holocaust. Those were your words. How is it not hypocritical? So we got like, let's just analogize this, okay? So we got oppressed groups, marginalized groups, othered groups, okay? And the arguments that are given because they're different, because they're maybe not as intelligent, or because they, any argument you could think of, right? People make to justify exploiting and killing other sentient beings. Oh, they're just so dumb, low IQ. They can't do the things that we want to do. We have the power over them, so let's do it. These are arguments that have been used throughout time to oppress other humans. How is this not Catherine, could you tell me in what realm that would not be hypocrisy? Like,
not hypocritical.
Like, it's like, Kepler 22b, like our closest similar planet, right? Is it possible on there that is not hypocritical? Perhaps you have to, maybe that's where Xanderhal is streaming from, and he has just got Geiger Chad internet.
We need to debate this guy.
Oh,
make it happen. Make it happen.
Oh my god, no, it's pissed me off now. Just like that whole little bit there, where they don't fight back though. Asshole.
That was the most ableist shit I think I've literally ever heard.
Oh my god.
Oh, they're not doing a very good job fighting back.
Like why did he feel the need to say that? Like, PP had just talked about how it shouldn't be downplayed, it shouldn't be mocked. Here's why. And he acknowledged, oh well, it's like basically like a Holocaust. Oh, don't do a really good job of fighting back though. Those were his exact. That's
like saying, I'm pretty sure do you know who Jesse Lee Peterson is?
Yeah.
So he said, I think
he's funny, but
said
he's
something.
Awful.
Yeah, I think he said something along the lines of like, I don't even want to say this out loud. Basically, that like slaves deserved to be enslaved because they just like passively accepted it. They didn't fight back. Or something.
That sounds like something Jesse Lee Peterson would say.
Yeah.
Oh my, that is horrific.
First of all, it's not true. And second of all, there's a thing called learned helplessness.
Yeah.
But like, animals do fight back. Like, watch any video. Like, why do you think they have to restrain the cows in racks? Like, why do you think those contraptions exist? Maybe it's because if you walked up to a cow and just shoved your fist up her anus, she wouldn't let you do it. She would run away from you.
Why do you think that chickens are hung upside down and strapped to a conveyor belt so that they can have their throat slit? Why do you think people have to prod and smack animals like on the behind to get them to walk towards where they're going to be killed? Like, why? Like, didn't fight back though.
There's so many videos of cows like escaping the trucks and pigs. There was a
Hang on,
pig who
Catherine.
jumped off of a moving
No, wait, Catherine.
truck.
Look, if like a woman who's kind of small gets attacked by a 6-foot guy, she wasn't doing a very good job of fighting back. Okay, like that's just how it works. That's how like morality functions. If you can't fight back, then well, you didn't do a very good job, did you? Like that's worth noting. That's worth saying. In any other context, if he'd said that, he'd been cancelled. Like literally. Yeah. Oh, God, that's the video. That's how he ended it. Like, oh really? I don't think it's
that was the worst. That was the worst.
Oh, that was worse than I thought it would be. Actual pain in my brain. Can I get some frogs in the chat for the brain frog that we have sustained together?